You know that feeling, right? That sense of some danger just hanging over your head. A threat so close you can almost feel the air change. Well, there's a perfect phrase for that. An image that people have used for centuries to describe that exact kind of looming peril.
Yeah, you've almost certainly heard the phrase, the Sword of Damocles, thrown around. It creates this incredibly powerful picture of imminent danger. President Kennedy used it right here to talk about the terrifying threat of nuclear war. It just perfectly nails that feeling of a catastrophe that could happen at any second, held back by literally the thinnest of threads.
But here's the thing. What if I told you that our modern understanding of that phrase is really only half the story? We use it to talk about impending doom, sure. But the original tale? Oh, it's much deeper. It's not just about danger. It's actually a profound lesson about power, fear, and what happiness really costs.
To really get it, we need to jump in our mental time machine and head back to ancient Sicily, right into the court of a very powerful, but as we'll find out, a very unhappy ruler.
Okay, so you've got two main characters in this drama. First, there's King Dionysius, the tyrant of Syracuse. He's got all the power, all the money, but he's also deeply miserable. And then you have Damocles. Think of him as the ultimate suck-up. He's always in the king's ear, going on and on about how amazing his life is, how lucky he is. You get the picture.
So one day, Dionysius has just had enough of the flattery. He turns to Damocles and basically says, "You think my life is so great? All right, how about you try it out for a day?" And of course, Damocles is like, "Yes, please." He absolutely leaps at the chance. This is his dream come true.
And at first, it is everything he ever imagined and more. Dionysius sets him up on a golden couch. There are luxurious tapestries everywhere. The room smells of incredible perfumes, and there's a massive feast laid out in front of him. He has servants waiting on his every whim.
I mean, can you imagine, for that one moment, Damocles must have felt like the luckiest, happiest man in the entire world. He finally had it all. What could possibly go wrong? In the middle of enjoying all this unbelievable luxury, just as he's really soaking it all in, something catches his eye. He casually glances up towards the ceiling.
And what he sees just stops his heart. There, hanging directly over his head, is a massive, gleaming, razor-sharp sword. And the only thing holding it there is one single, impossibly thin strand of horsehair. In that instant, the delicious food, the gold, the luxury, it all just disappears. The only thing in the world that exists for Damocles is that sword.
Suddenly, he's not hungry anymore. The beautiful room means nothing. He starts begging Dionysius to let him go, saying he doesn't want to be so fortunate after all. That constant, crushing fear completely wiped out any chance of happiness. The king's point was made, loud and clear.
Now, this wasn't just some spooky story to scare people. The reason we even know this tale today is because it was written down and used by the brilliant Roman statesman Cicero to make a much deeper philosophical point.
Cicero popped the story into one of his major works, the Tusculan Disputations. And for him, it wasn't just a thriller, it was a thought experiment. He was using it to argue that real, true happiness doesn't come from power or riches, but from living a good, virtuous life.
Cicero's main takeaway was this: you cannot possibly be happy if you are living in constant fear. The sword wasn't just some random prop. It was a symbol for the nonstop anxiety that came with Dionysius's power. That was the king's life, every single day. And believe me, this was no exaggeration. The king was legendarily paranoid. He literally had a moat built around his bed. He was so terrified a barber would assassinate him that he made his own daughters learn to shave him. And even then, he wouldn't trust them with a razor. They had to use singed nutshells to burn off his beard. This was not a happy guy.
So Cicero basically lays out these two opposing lifestyles. On one side, you have the tyrant, Dionysius. Yeah, he has power and wealth, but it leads to nothing but fear, paranoia, and complete misery. On the other side, you have a philosopher like Archimedes, who's all about pursuing knowledge and virtue. For Cicero, it was a no-brainer. Only that second path could lead to real happiness. This story was just so powerful, so sticky, that it broke free from its philosophical roots. It transformed from an ancient parable into the modern-day metaphor we all know.
You can actually trace its evolution through time. It goes from the original story to Cicero making it famous, to writers like Chaucer and Shakespeare riffing on the same idea. I mean, Shakespeare's famous line, "Uneasy lies the head that wears a crown," that's basically the Sword of Damocles in a nutshell. And then, as we saw with JFK, it found this whole new terrifying meaning in the nuclear age.
And today, oh man, it is everywhere. You can hear it in song lyrics from Kanye West and the Fugees talking about the pressures of fame. It pops up in TV shows from The Simpsons to sci-fi epics. It was even the nickname for the world's very first VR headset in 1968, mostly because the giant thing had to be hung from the ceiling right over your head.
And here's a cool little bonus fact for you. That one single strand of horsehair, it gave us a whole other saying we use all the time. Anytime you say a situation is hanging by a thread, you're tapping right back into the terror Damocles felt under that sword.
So, when you boil it all down, the Sword of Damocles is really about two things at once. On one hand, yes, it's that perfect symbol of impending doom, but at its core, it's still about Cicero's original lesson, a powerful reminder that with great power often comes great anxiety. The head that wears the crown is truly, deeply uneasy.
And that kind of brings it back to all of us, doesn't it? The story sticks around because we can all relate to that feeling of a worry hanging over our heads, no matter what it is. So it's worth asking yourself, what's the Sword of Damocles in your world?